Differences make us stronger. It's the name of a new campaign launched by Diversity Awareness Partnership in conjunction with the St. Louis Rams and Microsoft. And today we're going to learn more about that campaign and how it's aiming to raise the awareness and importance of diversity and inclusivity. We're also going to talk about what's on the map for Diversity Awareness Partnership in 2013. Please stay with us next on City Corner. I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome to City Corner. The nonprofit organization Diversity Awareness Partnership has launched a new campaign called Differences Make Us Stronger, and it's in conjunction with the St. Louis Rams and Microsoft. So on the first half of the show, we're going to talk about that campaign and its importance, not just in the St. Louis area, but really how diversity is important to all of us in our daily lives. I'm joined by Reena, Hajat, Carroll. She's the Executive Director of Diversity Awareness Partnership. Let's get through the introductions. Artis Twyman from the St. Louis Rams, Senior Director of Communications, and Evan Gatch, an account manager with Microsoft. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So there's this campaign, which is really, we've got a little thing on the table here, and we're going to show some graphics about it later, but tell us about this campaign.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. We are so excited about our new campaign. It just launched a couple months ago, and we have a goal to get 10,000 of these posters in schools, community buildings, companies, organizations, just all over our community to really have folks in our community understand that differences really are what make us stronger, and that diversity and inclusion is going to make our city richer and really flourish in years to come. Okay, so when we look at the posters, and we have posters, it's billboards, where will people see this? Yeah, absolutely. We had 2 billboards just last month. They were at 170 in Page and 40 in Compton, so people driving along the highways saw them, and then we have distributed to date 5,000 posters, and so they are in a number of the St. Louis City public schools, parochial schools, private schools, so they're in cafeterias, hallways, and then we have really been fortunate to have a number of major companies, Ameren, Microsoft, Webster University, a number of places here in the community that have asked for these and said, we want our employees to look at this, we want this to really add to our environment and culture. Okay, and so Artis, how did the St. Louis Rams, obviously you look at the poster and it's 3 St. Louis Rams players, so how did the Rams come to the table on this?
Well, the Rams, they've been involved with the DAP for a long time, since 2001, since its inclusion. And we've done posters in the past, but a lot of times those players have gone on to different places. So now we wanted to get some fresh faces, some guys who are playing on our team now, Sam Bradford, Michael Brockers, who's a rookie, and James Laurinaitis. And a lot of times when I talk to these guys about projects, they're iffy in this. When I told them about the DAP and what it stood for and where these posters would go, they were 100% on board, didn't have any problems. They were really excited to be a part of it.
How do you think diversity sort of matches? This is sort of a community-wide initiative, but also with what the Rams as an organization, sort of how the importance of diversity. Is it, I mean, how do those sort of match? I mean, I know obviously there's a clear diversity on the field, but I mean, how important is diversity to the St. Louis Rams?
Well, the Rams, they've had a history of diversity for a long time. Kenny Washington, who was a running back for the Rams in the 1940s, was the first person of color to play in the NFL. And this was 1 year before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball. So diversity has always been important to the St. Louis Rams. And like you said, it's not only on the field, but in the front office as well. We think it's very important because when you have a diverse people, you have a diverse thinking and a diverse group of people, so you kind of get the best out of both worlds.
Okay, and so I obviously want to bring in Microsoft here because you've been a partner as well. So Evan, how did Microsoft get involved in this campaign?
So we've been very fortunate to be involved with the local DAP for a number of years. We have a number of employees that are members of the DAP, and actually we have an employee who sits on the DAP board. And it really aligns well with Microsoft's corporate strategy around diversity and inclusion, because it's a big part of our strategy, our vision. It's why we're successful. We believe that diversity and inclusion enriches our performance, our products, the communities in which we live, and the employees that work at Microsoft.
I mean, diversity on one end is kind of like a hard thing to nail. I mean, you see all the time sort of diversity officers in big corporations. You see the importance of it, but it's really like, how do you sort of translate it to people's everyday lives? Like, how do you stress the importance? Is that sort of a challenge you feel, Reena, with the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because there's so many different layers of diversity and inclusion. So on the sort of first level is this people being sensitive to one another, being respectful, being knowing what language to use, knowing what not to say in the workplace. And so there's sort of that first level, and then there's this higher level diversity, which I think companies like the Rams and Microsoft really mirror in our community in terms of who are they hiring, what levels of what positions of influence do they have at their company, you know, our managers, our directors, people of color, are they women, what's the sort of ratio? And so there's these other issues around hiring, retention, recruitment, promotions, pay, salary disparities. I mean, there's all of these different issues that, again, we are so fortunate to have companies in St. Louis that really understand that, and again, understand that if they embrace these issues and if they really have strategy around how to be inclusive, they will profit, and that their competitive advantage as a company will increase. And so we really honor companies, again, like Microsoft and the Rams, and we have about 14 other corporate partners that do this, and they may be somewhat new, because diversity in general is a new sort of topic, and so they may be new at it, but they are focused and they're diligent about making a difference.
Right. I want to actually bring it back to you, Evan. When we talk about sort of corporate diversity, do you feel that sort of what Reena was talking about, that if one corporation sort of really owns diversity, that you see similar big name companies, Fortune 500 companies, that they start to see the importance of it as well? Is that part of the sort of adhering to it and taking it and sort of, you know, and just putting it out there that, yes, diversity is important to us? Do you feel that it has an effect on corporate America?
Yeah, absolutely. Diversity for us is not just the right thing to do, it's good for business. Microsoft is constantly trying to get the top talent from around the world, because it's not just about race, religion, and gender, it's about diversity of thought. So we have a global diversity and inclusion office that manages resources for people to make sure that when you go into an environment where thought's going to be shared, where intellectual property is going to be shared, that you're set up to be open to the ideas that are brought to those meetings. So we manage that very carefully, and our competitors do as well.
No, I like that, and I like that with diversity of thought, because I even feel like most recently kind of there's President Obama, there's talk about his cabinet and maybe not being as diverse as it was in the first term, and the idea is that diversity does bring, we're not just saying, hey, I have to bring in women, I have to bring in minorities, I have to bring in people from different religions, but it actually creates a more diverse platform and the ability for discussion. So no, thank you for raising that point. Artis, I want to kind of bring it to sports for a second, because what's really interesting about this campaign is sports seems so natural for diversity on one hand, because you look on the field and it's so diverse, and front office for a lot of sports organizations, and there is diversity. Flip side, I mean, sports tend to bring out racist tendencies in people, and most recently with Jamel Hill from ESPN, she tweeted a letter that was basically this racist rant about her being an African-American woman who's an ESPN personality. I mean, how do you sort of address this sort of, it's not really irony, but this kind of, you know, convergence of sports being kind of on one end, this area of a lot of racism and attacks, Serena Williams, a lot of things that happen in soccer, but at the same time being diverse on the other hand?
Well, one thing about sports, people are very passionate about sports, and they feel a certain way about their team and their sports figures. And so one thing we've been more diverse in sports, as well as the people that broadcast on television, the broadcasters and the reporters. You have women, you have minorities, and so it's a much more diverse group. And so you'll think that we've made strides in that, but then, like you said, with the letter that Jamel Hill received, you'll see that we haven't made as much progress as many people think we have. And so some people still have this closed-minded thinking, if you will, about what sports should look like, and the people who should comment on sports, and the people who should participate in sports. So we still have a long way to go, but I am glad that we have made some strides in that, as far as women and minorities on television and participating in broadcasting sports. So we still got a little bit ways to go, just like you said, like I said.
Yeah, no, I think it was interesting, because in Europe they were talking about some of the the soccer players, football in Europe, who, have been getting racist attacks on the field, and they said that they would just, now their sort of strategy is just to walk off the field, that they won't do it. And so it's interesting because sports on one end can bring people together from so many different backgrounds for all of one, for one common cause, which is to win. But then at the same time, it has this sort of ugly side to it. I mean, has that come up at all? I mean, when you look at how to launch a campaign, do you go towards sports, or are there other sort of strategies that you sort of think about in doing this public awareness campaign?
Yeah, I think in St. Louis, and I'm not from St. Louis, so I learned this very quickly, that St. Louis loves their sports teams. We love the Cardinals, we love the Rams and the Blues, and so we realized 10 years ago that this was one of the most effective ways to get to the community in terms of using our athletes and saying we need to care about diversity, we need to respect what diversity and inclusion is about, and so it has been really successful in that sense. But with the sports teams, one of the other partnerships that we have with the St. Louis Rams is called Rams Blitz, where we partner with them to work with high schools that may have had some racial tension or issues on the field. So football teams that have had some issues with race and racism. And so it's a year-long program where the schools come together and we do character development, we do diversity conversations, they get to do some exciting things like be in the locker room at the Rams and meet some players and talk to them. And all of this is just an effort to get people starting to talk about these issues, because if you've never had the opportunity or exposure to talk about race and diversity, then your knowledge base and what you say about it is pretty limited. So our main goal with programs like that is just to get people exposed to the issues and get them to start talking and in real sort of just in real ways that are open and honest and that can sort of start to dismantle stereotypes.
No, I think that's perfect. Where will people see this for the rest of the year? So we had the billboards, you have the posters, and you said this sort of goes in conjunction with some of your other programs?
Correct. So this program happens at Rams Park. So I'm not sure that other people will
Right,
see
we'll
it,
see
but schools should know that if they have issues, especially as it relates to their sports teams and football in particular, we'd love to have them part of that program.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. So, but if people want to find out more information about the Differences Makes Us Stronger campaign, they can go to the Diversity Awarenesses Partnerships website, and we have that information for you. But we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we're going to discuss some more stuff with Reena, Hajat, Carroll from Diversity Awareness Partnership. Please stay with us. Hi, I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome back to City Corner. Today we're talking with Reena, Hajat, Carroll. She's the Executive Director of Diversity Awareness Partnership. In the first half of the show, we were focusing on a new campaign that was launched by Diversity Awareness Partnership in conjunction with the St. Louis Rams and Microsoft that emphasizes the importance of diversity and inclusivity. And now we're going to talk about what Diversity Awareness Partnership has on the map for this year. So thank you for staying with us. And I'm glad that Artis and Evan could join us in the first half. But now let's kind of talk about what you really, outside of this campaign, have planned for 2013. What's kind of on the map for you?
We have just a really exciting year of programs coming up. The first program we have is January 31st is our first interfaith forum, and we are bringing the community together to talk about religious differences. So we will have Bridget Flood from the Incarnate Word Foundation, the Imam from the Islamic Foundation of Greater St. Louis, and a few more folks talking about religion in the workplace, about religious holidays, and just common misperceptions and stereotypes that people have about religious diversity. It's free, open to the public, and we're just really excited to get this conversation started.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like in a place like St. Louis, when you use the words diversity, it can always tends to feel like it goes towards the side of race.
Sure.
But really, and I know we've spoken about this before, it's really, when you look at the work that Diversity Awareness Partnership does, it's race, it's about sexual orientation, it's religion. I mean, talk about all the areas that you actually cover.
Yeah, and thank you for making that distinction, because that's true. I think typically in this country we've really had a conversation just about race and ethnicity related to diversity, but we have to recognize that it includes religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, which is very different than sexual orientation, disability, age, look, and lookism is another really big issue. So diversity encompasses much more than race.
Tell me, with lookism, what do you mean by that?
So we do a number of climate assessments with companies, nonprofits, arts organizations that look at what is happening in their environment with their employees and what the culture is like. And we've had a number of people say, you know, I have been judged because I may be overweight, or because I am shorter I'm more petite. And so that just automatically has red flags for people about my competency, about my abilities, about whether I'm lazy, whether I am going to be an overachiever or not. And so it's been really interesting how this lookism is what it's called, how that really translates into some other stereotypes and discrimination.
Interesting. And with the forum coming up, the Interfaith Forum coming up, I mean, what do you find in the St. Louis area in your work with organizations, companies, individuals? Where do you see the lack of understanding around religion? I mean, do you feel that this is a heavenly sort of Christian sort of area, and so people tend to look at other religions differently? I mean, what is your sense of people's lack of understanding of other religions here?
I think you're right. It is mostly sort of Catholic, Christian city, but I think that once people get exposed to different religions, they really are open, and they do respect differences. But it's just, again, about exposure, which I was saying earlier, is that you have to be exposed to the information, and you have to have a space where you can say, these people aren't evil, they're not terrorists, they're not some strange religious cult, right? And the way to do that is by giving people knowledge and by creating spaces where people can interact with one another and ask questions. So for this coming forum, one of the things we really want to touch on are religious holidays, because we don't all celebrate Christian holidays, and we do have to be mindful that if we call one of our Jewish colleagues or clients on Yom Kippur and try to do business or try to invite them somewhere, that may not be received in the way that you want it to.
Right. No, I think that's important. I mean, you know, I brought up in the first half the sort of recent story about Obama and President Obama and the potential that his cabinet and sort of picks for the second term are not going to be as potentially as diverse. Losing Hillary Clinton and, you know, and having white men step in places that maybe women occupied before or minorities occupied before. And it's kind of been a hot topic recently. I mean, do you think at the end of the day that do you think a lot of it is just people talking about the importance of something but not really acting on it? I mean, do you find that people really truly care about diversity on not just a corporate level, but even in this case on a national level, on a political level as well?
I think that's a really hard question. It's a great question. But I think that, yes, there are entities that have done the research, that have really studied this topic and said that when we have men and women, people of color, people from different countries that speak different languages, that have had different life experiences, that when all of these people come to the table and truly create a diverse table, then we have more innovation, we have more creativity, we have problem solving that looks very different than what it would if we had a homogenous group of people. And so I do feel that there are companies and organizations that get that. I think there are some that may not understand that yet, but I think, you know, they're getting there. But I think that what happens is they see that we've got new ideas that we would not have had if it remained homogenous. And so I think it's a little harder to act on diversity, to your point, and that it's easy to talk about diversity and embracing diversity, and then the action piece, which is really related to inclusivity, is a little harder. But I think, again, St. Louis is ripe for this, and they want to make a difference, and we want to grow and flourish, and we know that diversity and inclusion is part of that.
Right, and I think it's kind of one of those things too, where it's like whether we like it or not, this is the way that the rest of the world is, and it's the way that even this country is shifting in terms of population demographics. And it's like you have to be able to talk to people who are different than you and have that dialogue and have that sort of language, you know, to be able to do that. I'm going to shift gears for a bit because I know you do work with students here, and tell me about this student accounting program, because you do work with some of the city schools, is it, or?
Yes, absolutely. We are so thrilled about our new Explore Accounting program. We are partnering with PricewaterhouseCoopers here in St. Louis. They're the lead accounting firm, and we brought 30 students to PricewaterhouseCoopers in December for a 2-session program. And
we have a photo of that,
and those are our 30 young people that are beautiful, and they attended our first session. They navigated themselves downtown in this really large building that has like 4 sets of elevators, and for adults that can be hard to figure out in those like Met Square buildings. And so they did it, and they were with us all morning, and they got exposed to the field of accounting. They got to ask questions about what accountants do, what classes do you take, what college do you go to, how much money do accountants make. I mean, sort of everything was laid out on the table. And from the evaluations from this program, we had students saying that they were excited to be accountants, they were ready to be accountants. When could they get a job at PwC? So I think the effect that we wanted the program to have on the young people, it certainly had. And so we're excited to continue programs like this in different careers where we see some real disparities with women and people of color. So STEM careers in general, we want to do one with law, with the legal field, so with Stinson Morrison Hecker, which is a great supporter of ours, to do an Explore Law program, potentially an Explore Medicine program. So all of these different sort of career-focused programs for young people to really start thinking about this at an early age.
Okay, that's fantastic. And you know, earlier you mentioned sort of, and we kind of keep coming back to this point of how it's difficult. It's one thing to talk about diversity, but how do you sort of enact it in your day-to-day life if it's not something within your family or your close circle of friends or in your workplace? You've developed this new Young Friends Network to kind of help with that. So tell me a bit about the new development of this and how you think it's going to help people sort of be more inclusive.
Sure. We started a Be a Friend program, and so this is really because we've had people come to us and say, I want to have a diverse group of friends, I want to have a diverse network of just professional contacts, but I don't know anyone, or I don't know how to do that. And so over the years, after we kept hearing this, we said, why don't we just start a program where we are intentionally bringing people together for breakfast, for Cardinals games, for happy hours, whatever the case may be, so that you can really diversify your networks, whether it's socially or professionally. So our goal is to have 100 friends by April, and we're at 72 right now, so we're really excited, and anyone is welcome to join. It's a $25 donation that is just tax deductible to the Diversity Awareness Partnership, and you get benefits at every single level of friendship. There's $25, $75, and $100 levels.
Okay, wow, you guys are doing quite a bit. I mean, that's really, that's fantastic that you have so many programs working with the Rams, plus what's going with working with students, the professional outreach, the networking. We also have your big event of this year is the Diversity Summit.
Yes, and again, we just are so excited about this. This is a really big event. About 500 people attend our annual Diversity Summit. It's June 5th, hosted by Webster University, and Webster, as you know, is a big sponsor of the Diversity Awareness Partnership, and they're hosting us this year, and we will be bringing in Maria Castañón Motz. She's the Chief Diversity Officer of PwC, and she'll be coming in to do a keynote focused on changing demographics, talent pool, talent gap, so a number of different issues.
So when you have the summits, I mean, what is in general, what do you kind of feel is the feedback for people saying, I want to be more inclusive, but I don't know how, or what? I'm just curious to get, obviously as a woman and as a person of color, it's like it's not that it's not an issue, but it's an issue in maybe other areas. But I'm curious how, just some of the feedback you get with working with other organizations, what are some of the scenarios that creep up about a lack of inclusivity or a lack of diversity?
Yeah. So it's interesting. There's a number of different issues from I wasn't asked about this particular promotion. Wasn't asked about a new job, a promotion, for instance, right? They didn't even consider me for that that new job, or I get paid less than my coworker, and I know that because I've had conversations, or I've had sort of what we call micro inequities, where people do things, gestures, motions, they say things, they use specific words to one person but not to another person, and people are perceptive. They know what this is about, and so there's issues like that that come up, and our strategy is always, when it relates to diversity and inclusion, we have to have policies and procedures in place. And so if you have a particular job opening, it has to be casted to the entire employee base, not just handpicked people, you know, at certain situations. I mean, it's all circumstantial, but that something like that can really deter anyone feeling like they were intentionally discriminated against. And so there's policies, procedures that we can help companies work on. We can start doing diversity training, which that's a big part of what we do. So again, just igniting this conversation around diversity. And oftentimes employers have the best intentions, but they just don't know what they can do better. And so again, training, having conversations, quarterly check-ins around diversity, having speakers come in. A company like Ameren, for instance, is phenomenal with their diversity and inclusion efforts. You walk into Ameren and you can just sort of feel it. As soon as you walk in, you just know that they are a company that really, really values inclusivity.
And so if people really watching this show or companies are interested in working on their efforts for inclusivity and working on their efforts for diversity, they can just contact Diversity Awareness Partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's a company that is interested in starting a diversity program, we have something called a Corporate Diversity Roundtable. We meet quarterly, and it's for HR and diversity folks that just want to learn more about strategies, solutions, problem solve. And so they're more than welcome to do that, or just to get involved with our Be a Friend program, and we're happy to help.
Okay, all right, well, great. Well, I think we've covered a lot. I really appreciate you being here. I feel like I've learned a lot today. And really, for people at home, if you want to learn more about Diversity Awareness Partnership, we have their information that's going to come up on screen before as the show closes. So I want to thank you, Reena, and thanks to Artis and Evan for being here earlier. And thank you for watching City Corner. And please keep it right here on STL TV Experience St. Louis.